Hi, I'm Nicholas Grundish, and I am beating the often path by improving people's lives through science and revolutionizing battery technology.
EnergyX is a sustainable energy company focused on lithium extraction and recovery technology, forward osmosis, and solar thermal powered desalination. These technologies that you've never heard of, when combined, could create a process that dramatically lowers the cost of lithium resources, which, as you know, are kind of a big deal right now. Joining us today is Nicholas Grundish, who has earned a PhD in materials science and he studied under a Nobel Prize recipient. Now he's putting his battery tech to use for EnergyX, a company that's secured tens of millions in funding, with GM most recently leading their Series B with $50 million. So what does this mean for you and me? Well, batteries in our cars and our everyday devices will soon charge faster, be more safe, that's right, they won't catch fire on airplanes anymore, and have dramatically increased capacity. I love people who are building a more sustainable future, so here's Nicholas Grundish of EnergyX. I'm Ross Palmer, and this is Beat the Often Path. Welcome to the show, Nicholas. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here. I've looked at your website, and it's crazy what you're doing. What is this thing with lithium-ion batteries? Why is the demand so dang high, and why is this so important?
The last couple of years specifically, demand for lithium-ion batteries has really improved because people are starting to realize, especially when during COVID, when everyone was forced to stay home and there wasn't as much pollution and things like that, we saw sort of overnight the effect that we are really having on the environment. So people started to realize the importance of going green and energy storage and sources of renewable energy. And I think that's really when things started kickstarting towards battery technology and energy storage. And yeah, so I think certain people have probably claimed they knew it all along, but really the general public really saw overnight the difference that we're having on the environment and sort of coming to the realization that we have the power to change that.
It seems to me like there was a period, it's still going on now, where people just create startups based on adding a lithium ion battery to almost anything. There's just a huge category of startups that are just attaching a battery to something. You got a scooter, let's put a lithium ion battery in it. Hey, now you got an e-scooter. Every single thing in our life, you got a motorcycle, let's make it an e-motorcycle. You've got all of these gadgets that depend on lithium ion batteries. And I think so many companies just basically have a chargeable device as the core of their business model. Do you think that this is a fundamental part of sustainability, or is it something else that most of these people are chasing?
I think it's sort of part of the natural progression towards sustainability. I mean, I was, to your point, I was at Home Depot with my sister a couple weeks ago. She just, moved into a new house and, they now have a lawn and they were looking at lawnmowers and much to my surprise, I had never even thought about it. Somebody in the industry, they were all electric lawnmowers. I think there was
Oh,
maybe
yeah.
one gasoline option or something in the whole store. The rest were, 8 to 10 different types of electric lawnmowers. So I think it's just part of the natural progression that we're just moving from the old technology, the combustion engine, to the new technology, which is lithium-ion batteries and beyond.
So do you think that when we envision this future, that it's going to be lithium ion technology that's still here? Because we had NiCad and other battery types, and we've moved beyond for batteries that you can recharge more and charge quicker. Is the future a lithium ion future, or is this a stepping stone towards a completely different type of charging technology based on different sets of materials?
That's a really good question. I think I obviously am not a fortune teller or anything like that, but I've always been a very big
That's what you're
proponent.
supposed to be here for. I need to know. I
Yeah,
need to know where to place my money in the stock market.
yeah. I don't. Hey, you and me both, man. I'm a big believer that we're going to have a lot of different types of battery chemistries that are all very application specific. At the end of the day, we're limited by the periodic table, right? If you want something that has you can get extremely large amounts of energy out of without having something that weighs a ton or takes up an incredible amount of space. You can only go so high on the periodic table, right? There's lithium and then there's hydrogen, and I mean hydrogen, they all have their own problems, trade-offs, and things like that. So I mean, I think we're going to shift from this idea that, lithium ion batteries or just lithium based chemistries are the be all end all to more of an approach where, okay, well, we cost is more of a constraint here. So maybe we look at a sodium ion battery, or even potassium, magnesium, calcium. There's a lot of other alternative chemistries that still have a ways to go in their development, but as those sort of breakthroughs come, I'm a firm believer that we'll shift towards much more of an application-based sort of system. But at the end of the day, I mean, really, lithium-ion is um, sort of the go-to choice for high energy, high power applications. So portable electronics, portable anything really, I think is always going to be dominated by a lithium-based chemistry. So lithium ion or solid state lithium metal batteries, those types of devices.
That makes sense. So what then is, for those who don't know, what is the fundamental difference, or what are the new innovations that you're bringing to the table? Why are people investing in your technology? What is different about what you're doing than what other people are doing?
Yeah, so in the battery space, we're transitioning. So a normal lithium ion battery, essentially, you assemble it in a discharge state. Really, if you think about it, you're at a lithium deficiency because all of the lithium that's responsible for the energy storage is, in one side of the battery. And part of it gets consumed actually when you first charge the battery to stabilize, all the different interfaces you have. So what we're doing is we're transitioning from having lithium only on one side of the battery to having lithium on both sides, and one side is actually pure lithium metal. So you actually have a lithium excess. So as some of that lithium is consumed, you have additional lithium that you can then draw upon. So you're never at a deficiency, and that has a lot of advantages. You don't need as much total material in the battery to store all of that energy. So you end up getting more energy per unit weight and more energy per unit volume, which is two of the most important metrics when you think about electric vehicles or consumer electronics. I mean, the more energy you can store, we're also working on very inexpensive materials. So our dollar per kilowatt hour, which is the primary metric people use for evaluating battery technologies, is lower. So the batteries will ultimately be more inexpensive. Um, so that's sort of the end means is shifting to that lithium reservoir, pure lithium metal anode, and we're doing that by innovating on the electrolyte, which is sort of the medium between the two electrodes. So the two electrodes are responsible for sort of storing the energy. The electrolyte is responsible for transferring the lithium back and forth between those two poles, if you will. And so lithium metal, I mean, if you look back to sort of the inception of lithium ion batteries, Stan Whittingham was using lithium metal at Exxon in 1976. The problem was their batteries kept exploding. So really our innovations are coming in on the electrolyte and making electrolytes that are stable with lithium metal and allow it to be used safely. So it's kind of funny. We've come full circle, but we've made a tremendous amount of progress in the last, I guess, almost 50 years.
Is this something that you see as a short-term project? Is this something that you see as more of a life's mission? How do you feel about this work and the meaning in your own life?
Yeah, I mean, I obviously can't speak for how I'll feel 10 to 20 years from now, but right now, I mean, it is my life's mission to really get a battery on the market that improve. I mean, even if it to start improving one person's life would mean the world to me, but to improve the life of hundreds, thousands, millions, I think that would mean more to me than anything really. I mean, I had the opportunity to work with John Goodenough at UT. I mean,
I
that's
saw
where
that.
I did my
Nobel
PhD,
Prize.
and
Oh,
yeah, and
cool.
just he changed my life in a lot of ways. I mean, obviously, I learned how to perform experiments and think about problems in the material science area, and he taught me. I mean, he did teach me how to think properly, is how I would phrase it in some degree, to some degree. But just his approach to life and how it really was. I mean, he I started working with him when he was 93. So the
Dang,
fact that
dude.
he was still driving himself to work every day, coming into the office when he could have
Whoa.
retired many, many years before, just seeing that level and I mean, he outworked a lot of us in the laboratory too. I mean, a lot of his postdocs went home before he did, and just seeing sort of that level of dedication and understanding that, where it was coming from, I think was a very profound moment in my life. And I mean, I wanted to do nothing short of emulate that and really try to capture that sort of internal peace that I saw he had. And so I would say that's what I'm trying to do here at EnergyX. I mean, obviously, if the technology is successful, right, it shifts from being, research and development focused to more of a manufacturing thing. Whether I will make that transition with the technology or whether somebody else will be better suited for that, I have no idea. But for right now, I mean, I'm focused on developing the technology and getting it to a place where, it has a real opportunity to change people's lives.
I appreciate you sitting down, taking the time to share your journey with me and also a bit about the company. I'm sure that in a couple years' time, I'll look back on this moment as being like, yeah, see, I knew before, before they went crazy, before they got their first $1 billion. It's gonna happen. Before we wrap this episode up, do you have any parting words for people who may be in a position that you were before they fully realized the practical implications of what they were pursuing, or how they could make a shift towards something that's more mission driven? Any kind of parting words at all?
I mean, it sounds extremely cliche, but I mean, it's been told to me by numerous people, and I think it starts to make more sense as you start to experience it. But work on the problems that really interest you, and everything else will sort of fall into place. And I guess something that's tangentially related to that is, something that Goodenough said all the time that's really stuck with me is, we should really be focusing on competing against problems and not other people. Obviously, when you're in industry and you you have real competitors all trying to beat each other out, that's one thing. But when it comes to the mundane people problems that I sort of witness, people developing friction with each other, it's not worth the effort. It's not worth the time. We should all be focused on solving problems and not creating them. So
That's a powerful sentiment for anybody who's willing to hear it. I completely agree. It's hard not to get distracted, especially in a world full of noise that is constantly trying to get your attention and to pull you off of what matters. I think staying focused
yeah.
on what affects us all is one of the greatest superpowers that any human can have in this generation, this time, this very weird time. Where can people support, follow? Where can they check in on what you're doing?
Specifically, I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, at least for my professional endeavors. The EnergyX website is great. I know we're pretty good at keeping up our socials as well. So with the EnergyX, I believe we have an Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok. I think we have a Facebook. If people still use Facebook, I have no
Facebook
idea.
is you're on
Um,
the TikTok grind. Yeah.
but yeah, at least keeping up with EnergyX and keeping up with me and sort of what I'm up to at EnergyX, LinkedIn is a great resource. Yeah, and so I think if anyone's interested in learning more, our website is also, I mean, as you mentioned, it's up to date, and I think it's a pretty impressive website. At least it looks cool and gives people a flavor of what we're doing.
Definitely.
So
Yes, yes, it is. It's both of those things. Yep, no doubt. Awesome. Well, thanks again, Nicholas. It's been an absolute pleasure. And that website is energyx.com, right?
yeah, yeah.
And
Sorry.
with that, the official podcast is over.